Well, hello, everybody. Welcome back to the LJL OU, bringing you that coverage of the LJL 2021 Spring Split between Sengoku Gaming and V3 Esports. It's still not Swan here. It's still Initialize in the middle. It's still Nightmare over on the other side of your screens. And we've got a breakdown to come bring you. Game number 2 is almost upon us. While we wait for them to start game number 2, gentlemen, I think it's fair to say, what do V3 need to do differently for this game to go slightly in their favor, even more than by like maybe 50 gold in the early game? Initialize, I'm going to come over to you first.
I think you probably need to have a look around getting Ace out of lane a little bit easier. The mid lane didn't have very much impact this game, whereas I actually think bot lane looked relatively good early on. Jinx Thresh is a good combo. They could definitely have looked to punish a little bit harder, especially if Volibear Sign is going to be left on an island. Leave it on the island. It's not necessarily your win condition. I just need to see them play a little bit harder around what was some decent early lane moments, and part of that is getting Ace out on the map to be able to facilitate that a bit better.
What about yourself, Nymara? Where do you sit at the moment? What do V3 need to do differently to even attempt to find some form of lead?
They have to triage their drafts pretty hard at this point. I think that, again, that last pick, Volibear, was not the pick. Like I said, I think Set is a perfect pick there. I don't think Volibear is awful, but I feel like there are things which actually give you much better win conditions around playing through front to back and stuff like that. You can even pick yourself something like a Cho'Gath if you wanted to have a better front line. The fact that they didn't end up picking any front line for a composition that so desperately needed it because of the range advantage that they had, and they could then kind of form their battle lines, form that phalanx, that was what they needed. They didn't identify that, and they now need to very quickly start reassessing what they need out of their last couple of picks in the draft to really round out the composition. I think they're probably going to head on towards blue side. That might help. If they can only win on blue side, that means you're just going to slide to a defeat, because they don't have side choice in games 3 and 5 if it comes to it.
So they're going to have to crack them on the red side at least once, and that might be very difficult. Though, obviously, we have this slight feeling that potentially V3 might be able to play the rest of the series on blue side, as Sengoku Gaming have seen a preference towards red side. But then game number 1, Sengoku had that preference, and they went blue side.
So it's pretty doomed if Sengoku can win on blue and then also be a red-centric team in the regular season. It's feeling pretty doomed.
So, gentlemen, we've already highlighted, well, you, Nymara, have already highlighted a few of those champions. Obviously, that's Set for one in the top lane. Are there any other kind of V3 picks? Obviously, Galio immediately springs to mind for Ace. Reiner, obviously, partly a Set player. And pretty much anything, really, that works for them when it comes to the engage. I'd like to see an Alistair, personally, out of Reiner and really kind of get more engaged.
Have a tank support. You actually have a support that can survive tanking up the first CC. Does well versus the Rel. I mean, Thresh isn't awful with that. I think also for me, Karma is a huge pick. I don't think that the Zoe is something that they should go towards with that. Exactly. Yeah, I think that. I mean, go on.
I mean, just in terms of if you are going to want to pick the Jinx, then Thresh, I get, makes sense with that pick, but then go for the Karma in mid lane, give some more support for the Jinx, right? Be sure so you've got probably easier early priority than a Zoe, who kind of needs a few levels in Paddle Star before she clears the wave as quickly as a Karma would with the Mantra Q. So, yeah, I think that Karma pick idea from Nymara is a smart one, especially if you do want to run that Jinx Thresh combo, which, again, it is a good combo. It is, but you need to make more of it.
But then it comes around, if we're going to play this kind of Karma style gameplay, it has to be something that V3 have practiced. And it's not been something we've seen from them recently, really. V3 haven't been pulling out these kind of picks, and they haven't even been playing the more powerful picks, such as Seraphine.
And that's a huge thing for me. If you can't pick Seraphine and you have to ban it away on blue side when you're playing that as well, when you're playing that side, things are not looking good. This is why I think it's looking pretty doomed. This has to now be, like I said, a very quick turnaround from V3 to see, okay, this is where we've been failing. This is what we need from our next composition if we're going to round things out with our last couple of picks. And I just don't know if they've got that working for them. Remember, even against the Hawks, V3 was sat there saying, oh yeah, what we'd practiced didn't work out, so we had to go back to kind of like a plan B when it came around the Gnar counters towards the top side. They ended up losing 2 games to the Hawks, of course. And my problem is, if you're doing that versus the likes of Sengoku, they are not really a forgiving opponent. They are probably going to just, again, the phrase I used last time, just put you to the sword.
And if you're getting put to the sword and V3 don't seem to have a response to them, where can that happen? And I would argue that a big part of it needs to come from Muujin, as a huge part of this matchup did feel very much decided by this jungle matchup. The dive in bot lane where the lead really
mid lane 3 times
started to begin for them. Right? And it's like, you to a point, you can't really blame Ace if your jungler, if your mid laner is getting ganked repeatedly. He can't roam out of his lane because he can never push it out to roam in the first place. Am I wrong, guys?
I mean, to a certain extent, I think there's something to it. I think the first pick in particular is going to have Muujin slapping the desk a little bit in frustration because he thought he was out. Like, he'd thrown the collateral damage. He thought he was out of that shockwave distance. He was going to try and play it to the edge. It's the Graves way. You want to kind of get in close to be doing the auto attacks, but you're also, you know, an AD carry at the end of the day, even if you've got True Crit to offer some innate tankiness. And he thinks he's out. He's not. He dies. It empowers Ramanate even more. That puts Ace in a bigger hole. He's already been struggling in lane. And if that happens a couple more times, then you're really in trouble. And I think 3 damage comps have fallen off a little bit, especially if you're not going to run a true tank support. And yeah, I think the Udyr just had way more efficacy. Crash had a great game. Muujin had a quiet one at best. And part of that, yes, is the early scuttle play not working out. Part of it, yes, is getting caught out in mid lane. But those 2 things together started a kind of anti-snowball into a bit of impotence, really, from the superstar V3 jungler.
Well, we'll have to see how these 2 teams get on as we are into pick and ban phase. So, gentlemen, take it away.
Thank you again, Masked Swan. We are back onto, well, not quite the Rift, but the pre-Rift, the pick and bans, I suppose, is the actual official name, as Lexi literally just said. But alas, I'm here to make things more complicated than they need to be. V3 Esports onto the blue side this time, Sengoku Gaming over on the red, which is significantly more thematically appropriate considering the color schemes involved. We have ourselves a few bans to note as well.
Well, this is look what happened with these last 2 bans. Hecarim, Seraphine both open. Udyr's open. V3 just go, oh crap, we've left too much stuff up at this point. And now the gauntlet's been thrown, and Sengoku can almost just sit here and say, well, there's Seraphine, there's Udyr. We know that you picked the Udyr. Maybe they banned that away themselves, and hope that V3 haven't prepped that pick in response.
Potentially, but Ace Reiner, you'd imagine, would have Seraphine up their sleeves. I imagine every team, surely indeed, and exactly, they're not gonna leave that one up. And Nocturne instead is the ban, which again has been a bit of a thing in the top lane. If you've been checking any players' solo queue accounts, any occasional picks, that Nocturne with the Stride Breaker and the pseudo tank build is so damn obnoxious. It's banned off the table. No solo lane Nocturne for today. Instead, it's the Udyr first pick. Sengoku Gaming are thinking about going for the Thresh themselves and showing V3 how it's really done.
Is this going to be the Thresh Aphelios, the Thresh Jinx? It's going to be the Thresh
there it is.
Jinx. There is now the chance that V3, of course, can respond with what Sengoku did last time. Pick yourself up something like that Samira Rel, which has kill pressure onto it. Reiner has had a number of good games on this champion. It does make you look good as a support player. Rel is the flavor of the month, flavor of the split, let's be honest. Champion for the support role and making those montage plays. What are they going to lock in alongside it, though? Hollow, I'm trying to remember if he was a big Samira player. I'm not sure if he's the same level as Gango. Kai'Sa, though, not awful in terms of that follow-up AD carry. Be able to follow in with the Killer Instinct, of course. And that's the lane they've gone for.
Udyr and Rel stampede in. Kai'Sa follows up with a Killer Instinct, and you have yourself a decent little combo there. Sengoku Gaming, though, gonna need to think about possibly picking up their own jungler here. They've got themselves the Thresh and the Jinx, but I might suggest picking up that jungler now you know you're into the Udyr. I wonder what they want to go
depends
for.
If they've...
Hecarim is off the table. Olaf is available,
it's
and they do go for that for Crash.
So this is, I mean, Olaf has been nerfed by this point. That's why he's not, up there as the first pick ban. He is still in contention with those top jungles, though. Even with those nerfs still in and around the meta. Sengoku now banning out looks like more lane-dominant top sides. And this now leads me to believe, I mean, well, one of the problems with playing stuff like Siren is that you can just get, monstered in that earlier game by something like Thronecton, so maybe they're just going to go back towards that Sion, I mean, it worked very well for them last time. You're into a Kai'Sa, which is a champion which struggles to front to back as effectively as that Jinx when you do have, again, a strong front line to go through, and that's probably what they're going to go and angle towards.
Yeah, it does look like that's the option. Banning away a few key picks are Sengoku the Renekton out from Sengoku. Of course, it's another stun to go alongside Udyr. It's more frontline. It's good lane dominance out of the way. Zillion as well is one of those picks that can empower the likes of an Udyr, a Rel, or even, honestly, a Kai'Sa to stay alive and be a bit problematic. Ace has played it before. V3 looking to get rid of some of those control mages, and Seraphine makes her way
the fact that Seraphine is a second round ban is absolutely absurd to me. Lulu being hovered, I mean, there is Jinx in the game, and I mean, I would prefer something like the Karma, just because it gives you more laning presence, but Lulu, if you do reach those team fights while you also have survived that laning phase, it means that Jinx does have a huge amount of power from the Whimsy. It's not going to be that, it's going to be the Victor. Ramune has fallen back to this time and time again. And on the other side, now waiting for that mid lane matchup from V3, of course.
Yeah, indeed. Victor has certainly been something that Ramone's had some good games on. Honestly, he's had a good playoffs. He's the second highest DPM of any playoffs player, just behind Nahun in the mid lane. For mid laners, that is specifically, he's got up there in the damage. He's the second highest damage percentage. He's not doing bad in terms of just some of his other stats as well, like the kill participation. He's he's having a good playoffs, is Ramone, and getting on something like the Victor, which can certainly pump out those numbers, is good news for a player that's having a surge of form when it matters. The response from V3, though, is the Twisted Fate. And if you were in EU, you'd be feeling pretty scared right now.
This is Ace's first ever Twisted Fate game. He has never played the champion before. I just had a quick check. Got a course second screen with a couple of stats thingamabobbies on the side of it. So now it's going to be really interesting to see how V3, because again, I know that when we were talking the pregame, Master One was talking about, well, actually the problem with picking something like a Karma right now is that they're not really practiced with that style of the split. Well, Twisted Fate requires even more practice to balance the map, know where you can be on side lanes. Now you've got that Volibear into Gragas, that seems like a neutralizing matchup in itself. At least you do have yourself less of that tank frontline disadvantage, but diving a Gragas on a side lane with a Twisted Fate is no easy feat. Sengoku, I think they're happy again with this draft, and V3, they have to show that their prep has paid off with the likes of this Twisted Fate pick coming in.
There is a lot of CC in pretty much every lane for Muujin and Ace to get things rolling, get picks happening. Everybody but Kai'Sa able to bring some effectively point-and-click stuns, or at least very easy activatable stuns. Whereas Sengoku Gaming, it's a little bit more team fight options for this squad, and we'll see exactly how it plays out. But Victor Jinx as your backline with a Gragas, with an Olaf, there we go. That was the ability thing. Is Udyr is like, no, that's the other team. You do have a way to play these team fights out, but if it ever ends up split up, there are a lot of ways for V3 to just chain season one into death.
Absolutely. And for those of you in chat, absolutely let us know what you think about these drafts, about these teams, about the playoffs in general. Of course, this is the lower bracket finals per se. Of course, the winner of this will go on to face the loser of the Juggernaut match, which of course is Rascal Jester. So technically, there is one more series to be played between before the finals from this lower bracket. But from those that started down here, and that was of course these two teams and the two teams they ended up beating to get here. This is just the next step towards the goal.
That it is. Sengoku Gaming already got the 1-game lead. They've got a team fight comp and some laning prowess to see whether they can make it too. But V3 going for a bit of a different tack in draft. They're going more for a global pick comp. They've got themselves CC pretty much everywhere you care to look. They've got the Twisted Fate. It might be Ace's first time, but we know how Twisted Fate works. And considering Ace's proclivity for globals and roaming, it's a good option for him, assuming he knows what he's doing on the champion.
Yeah, so So there are two things I want to bring up. Is obviously a very good point about what you're talking about in terms of what Ace is talking about. What we saw there was Sengoku realizing, hang on, Reiner put a ward down in this brush at level 1 last game. We're going to make sure we turn up as 5 people and, you know, bash his head in if he turns up. They go down as 5 people with a sweeper in tow. They don't find anything. But honestly, that kind of adaptation can be really important. If you walk in as Reiner, be like, oh, I'm gonna get this level 1 ward, and just find 4 people standing there, you're like, mistakes were definitely made. That's one thing. The other thing is that Ace does love his roaming picks, but if you look at the picks he's actually typically had success on, they're not really ones with globals and ones which need very specific lane management and wave management. You're starting with the E, that's often been the start from Twisted Fates nowadays, because it means that you have better mana sustain, and your level 1 damage is actually fairly high with that. It gives you also passive attack speed, which can be good for your early trading. Either way, for me now, this is a real telling moment for how prepared Ace has come in, how he controls his lanes, knows that, of course, he's got the spellbook, he can play more aggressively with the Corrupting Potion if you follow your Apto/Doper lines of philosophy, but he needs to show that he is learned on this champion, because he's not typically been one for strong laning phases. He's more been about picks which deny the enemy the ability to kind of force him out of lane. It allows him to just quickly smooth over that lane management and say, you know, I'll just turn it to a play and snowball. It doesn't matter if I have the minions in the right place.
Pretty much both junglers as well. Starting on the top side of the map as Cog gets a nice little trade there with the Sky Splitter. Paz had got himself a decent HP bar lead until that one came through, and suddenly looks a little bit nastier. NT and Gango are the ones with the shove this time. There is no level 1 ward shenanigans into early lane push, which gives Thresh and Jinx once again the early level 2 advantage, but not for long.
The key thing in this matchup, though, there's no exhaust on Gango, so if it comes down to an AD carry 1v1, you don't have that to deny the Kai'Sa Plasma proc when you do get all of those autos in to kind of finally finish that one off. Also, there's going to be the Ignite onto NT, so whereas before there was actually the exhaust coming in from Reiner in this mirror matchup as support, a little bit more kill pressure. If you do land that hook into the traps, significantly more kill threat. Flayed out of the crash down, but has the mount up now available in the next, I think it's 13 seconds on both sides of that cooldown, actually. Both junglers working their way towards bot side. This time Crash is going to be, well, once again, onto one of these scuttles. And this time he doesn't have to worry about smiting away from a pesky solo laner.
He certainly does not. He'll get that early Scuttle Crab. He might look for a bit of an invade. He will likely be on vision having done so, but no, just stops at that Pixel Brush and will look to get out. You can see that Muujin has moved up to the topside river to get some himself. Paz gets a belly bop, but also takes a Sky Splitter. And once again, these top laners just trading with their health bars, and little more to be said there.
So Paz looking for slightly shorter trades because he has the Grasp as opposed to Conqueror onto Cog's Volibear. Either way, Cog actually is asserting some lane dominance on this pick, which we expected last time, but it didn't really work out. Maybe it is, of course, because of the way that these junglers are passed. NT, though, in a spot of bother, puts the Ignite down to Reiner.
It does put the Ignite down. Remember, it's cleanse, not heal in for Gango, so that trading can get a little bit awkward. Summoner advantage now to
well, this is exactly what I was talking
Esports.
about. I mean, I ran through the summoners a little earlier, said that in the 1v1 between AD carries, that'll be a factor too. 1v2, though, in top lane, Cog needs to run away from this Olaf.
He does, but the Undertow lands. That makes things very difficult. The Sky Splitter coming through for all the shields and slows down Crash as well, and he gets to walk out without burning summoners himself. Nice little look in from Sengoku Gaming, but they don't get anything for their time.
It could have been a flash-for-flash trade, because you flash onto the axe to pick it up, get a second one down, and then the Cog is likely going to need to flash away. Muujin getting TPs to support his 1v1 here.
Flashes in, and the Phoenix dances there. Crab Rave. Olaf is gone.
Olaf is gone. Really good response as well from Cog already resetting. And this is the jungle advantage that we wanted to see from game 1 with the Graves versus the Udyr. Now Muujin with the Udyr themselves hasn't quite been nerfed at this point in the meta, because it's still 11.5, comes in with first blood, forces that flash out of Crash. This is a good start for V3.
It was indeed. Crash was a little bit lower. Muujin goes for the invade, the teleport on the reset from Cog. Chef's kiss in my mind from V3 there. A little bit of a better start for them on the top side of the map. Muujin and Cog Coming up big as in goes Reiner. It's flash for the attract, repel, and the crash type. Enty trying to turn it around. There is no heal. Remember, the flate is there. He's trying to get away. But now Gango on the other side trying to get onto Reiner, get those last shots. One rocket will do it, and he is excited. No mana, but does have a bit of speed. Muujin coming down as well, but he's going to be late. The zap hit. Hollow so low. No heal. Flash away from Gango trying to get in. Crashes around as well. Trying to get something. The cleanse, though, gets him away from the bear slap, but still not enough. The undertow's landing. Crash so low, and he goes down as well, and it's a disaster in the bot lane for Sengoku Gaming. They lose 3, and Hollow survives.
The Hollow gets all kill participation in that one, of course. 1 kill to assist Muujin very heavily onto the board. It's a 1,500 gold lead already. How did it happen? Well, we're going to go back into this replay. It's going to be the mount up. We've seen that so often from Rel into matches where you can have your crash down cancelled. We see Gango and Hollow both thinking the same thing. Gotta finish off the support. Gango does get excited. I was worried at this point for the Kai'Sa because you do have to play against such a huge amount of attack speed coming in from the Jinx. Gango can't quite kite towards Crash in time, though. And Muujin, with the bear stance and the phase rush, just gets right on top of the Jinx's face. And Crash just goes down for another death, kind of compounding the issue in the early game for Sengoku.
Yep, and that is now a 2,000-ish gold lead for V3 off those early plays. Cog and Muujin and Ace all over here, and Crash like, I can't take this. To try and get his way out with the blast company. He's to be a bit afraid, actually. Ace was debating continuing going forward there, I think. The red buff reset.
I actually think that Ace should have popped the ult and just flies in there. He knows that Crash doesn't have level 6. There's no tenacity involved just yet. You might have some from well, you're not even going to get that tenacity rune from your precision runes, most likely, because you do have your ultimate. I'm not sure the Olaf ends up running that rune. You had the ignite too. Lots of kill pressure available. Doesn't quite see the play, though. Goes to be a little bit more reserved. Crash going to invade onto that bot. And Ramune now getting ganked in mid.
Flashes away and survives. Can't quite get close enough for a bear slap. That's a fantastic death sentence into the flay. Reiner now desperately low, and Gango gets that one. That's a beautiful turnaround. Killing the bot. And now Hollow is in trouble. Crashes around, but here comes Muujin.
Has
and Ace does indeed, but crashes around as well. It would be a 3v3. I'm not sure they necessarily want it, and Gango just gets another play and much needed reprieve in the bot side.
So, while we talk about Hollow, lives, gets kills, gets assists. Yes, well, Gango has more CS and now has 2 kills to their name as well. Plus, the plates they get from the back end of that play. Ignite on Thresh means that the early kill pressure is that much more accentuated. Yes, you don't have accentuated, rather. You don't have that exhaust for future all-ins, but you don't really give a damn if it's going to get Gango into a winning position like it has done already.
The Jinx is online. She's got 2 kills. She's got herself early boots, and that pickaxe, she is ready to rumble. I think the boots are probably quite sensible when you're trying to run away from a lot of people who are going very fast at you. Yes, you've got a Thresh behind you. Yes, you've got the cleanse when it'll come back off cooldown relatively shortly. But you still want to be able to move as fast as you can to keep out of range of all those Phoenix stance slaps, as well as the bear slaps as well.
That you do.
Dragon not taken yet. Also worth pointing out, no one's decided to go towards. So it is still an early gold lead to V3, just off the early kills and pressure elsewhere on the map. But Sengoku at least now have a win condition that's somewhat online.
They do, and we see that there are actually tier 2 boots picked up early from Gango. I think that's really important because it allows you to backstep on the crash down so much more effectively. It is a slow-moving ability until, of course, you have that Hex Flash coming in and be able to stun mid-air. I think that Gango is following that same kind of line of philosophy that Reckless used to have way back in, your Season 8, really, where he built boots first on pretty much every champion. Just sat there and was like, yeah, I can just win lane with this. I'm going to dodge more skill shots. I'm going to follow up for those extra autos and trades, even though I don't have the extra AD or attack speed that regards the build on the AD carry. And Gango just, again, asserting dominance at this point, continually pushing in. And Ace does have the ultimate. Cog doesn't have the TP, though. I think Sengoku are happy to just play around pressure bot side and deal with the TF pressure as it comes out.
Crash now around this bot side as well. Muujin is there on Krug, so it would be a 3v3 if something were to break out. Third plate goes down for Gango and Enty. That's not necessarily a surprise. We've seen these guys pressure around that quite a lot. And Crash will now have put his name on Vision, though, because there's a couple of control wards around, and Muujin might look to see whether he can find out this Olaf. But nice little back spot will get Crash out of danger.
And he will. So Ramune in this mid lane as well, just getting a reset off at a decent time. Gets it on the cannon wave, pushes into tower. and much the same as Sengoku, crashing that wave into tower, meaning that they can't stop their own backs. Actually, Gango sticking around in lane just for an extra second, maybe just faking the recall, seeing if anything can be done with that.
99 problems, but CS ain't one. Jinx nearly at that triple-digit CS mark. Not quite back yet. Cancelled that one out. Clearly waiting for this wave to now come in. And early Drake did go the way of Sengoku as well, as you kind of saw on screen a moment or two ago. Turbo Chem Tank, though, now complete for Udyr, who has been the recipient of a lot of the early gold for V3. And Mugen is going to have to continue to find the picks that this comp is set up for, especially considering the advantage he's got for himself early on in this game. Cog trading very heavily with that Conqueror stacking onto Paz.
Ace has gold card as well, flashing in.
Oh, so it's going to be a 2v2 though, and Crash is here. There is the gravity well from Ramane to buy space, and time Mugen stepping forwards again, but he's just so tanky at this point. And nothing burnt, especially from Ramane, who just get to walk out, flash down from Mugen, and Crash in the right place at the right time to stop too much more coming through.
But what I do like about this is that, yes, you end up blowing a couple of ultimates, I suppose, from Sengoku, but you were in position to hang topside, were Ace going topside themselves. Protects Paz, who is at a 30 CS deficit. That is something which is really leading to this gold advantage from the side of V3, but it is still protecting the top lane. They haven't quite managed to do that the entire way, though, as Paz is still getting ulted on.
Flash, thundering smash from Paz, who still flashes in turn. I think you just need to take the L there, buddy. He goes down, tried to cask Cog far enough away under the tower that it wasn't going to be an option, but they still get the pick. The Twisted Fate gets the first ultimate off and makes it stick. And another kill over to Mugen, who's got a Herald in inventory as well. And that's looking like first turret to me in the top side.
This just reminds me of, you know, that scene from Mass Effect? It's like, you know, what's the Newton's third law of relativity? And it's like, an object in motion stays in motion. It's like, well, no points for half answers. Sengoku do half their homework in protecting top lane, then just forget about the second part. Paz still gets dove on, uses the ult to try and clear out the wave, leaves tower as well. I think that was a little bit awkward, but then the problem is, of course, you're against that volleyball, can cancel those tower shots. And then Paz kind of sat there being like, well, I wish someone could have helped me a little bit more there. And now Ramane in a lot of trouble.
Ramane's in trouble. Yeah, here goes Mugen as well. That was nicely played. He was on vision. That was it was a good ward from Ace there, and it gets punished. It's a 6th kill now for V3, who are up 3,500 gold. Yes, the Jinx is doing well, but the top side of the map is looking a little bit rough. Ramane, again, had been playing so well and avoided so many ganks, he thought he was fine. And just tries to back on Vision over the wall and gets picked off for it. Nice gold card and then a very quick Udyr.
Behold, the OGN recall. Long may it rain. Crash is down a very large amount of CS, well, not CS, but XP at this point too. About 11.5 down. He's being denied camps. He doesn't have the ability to run back at Mugen, who, of course, dueled him early even. Sengoku now waiting, of course, for the first big team fights. I think that's where they can start turning things around. Problem is, their tanks are very far behind. Luckily, you aren't into a Scion or a Cho'Gath or something which is equally hard to deal with. But and given that your Jinx is very far ahead at this point too, and then your Victor, even though they have died that one time, is still relevant in this game. I think that's what Sengoku are looking for. You're looking for that first big team fight, and what comes of that?
Again, you are running a Twisted Face and a Kai'Sa who's not quite at first item yet. Like, you do have good teamfight options to Sengoku, but if the map continues to be wide, if Udyr and Twisted Fate can continue just to gang up on people with their target accessibility, especially when those sort of smaller skirmish-style fights, then V3 will continue likely to be able to find these picks, and Sengoku would desperately like to staunch the bleeding and then find the team fights.
They would. So plate gold, even on both sides. So obviously the top lane turret had a lot of plates taken from V3, as they did take the full first turret as well. And V3, alongside those plates, have just picked up so many laning advantages, particularly towards that top side. And then just the damn kills coming in from Mugen. They have themselves a comfortable lead. They're going to take themselves the second dragon. There is, of course, a Jinx Soul available to steal if they do want to go for it. Not going to get there in time, though.
Ooh. Yeah, it doesn't pull the trigger. I think that was probably worthwhile, honestly, looking for that. Instead, NT and Gango stepping forward. There's Crash as well. Gets onto Rhino, who has, of course, got a Crash down, but needs to get to the wall first. Mugen now coming over as well. Very, very low. Goes over. Crash won't follow.
Close. Extra resists coming in from the horseless form. does mean that with the lat alongside the shield puts Reiner to safety. No ignite committed or anything like that from NT either. Sengoku again waiting for their first chance to really pull the trigger on these team fights, which V3 have done a good job in denying so far.
Big advantages in top and jungle. Unsurprisingly, Muujin could be getting something here, but Crash turns it around with a Ragnarok, and that is the ultimate down, but does survive. That'll be his Raptors under siege again, though, and Cog onto the Krugs on the top side. That's not a lot of farm for Crash, who's having his jungle consistently taken away.
His jungle? I think we've watched the wrong game. I think this was all Muujin.
Yeah, someone's just scribbled over the name and says, "This is mine now," and it's like, yes, this is your jungle. This is my jungle.
That it is. It's also V3's. It's V3's Herald as well. So they're going to say, down that one. This is probably going to go towards that mid lane outer turret. I think if Sengoku lose that one structure, suddenly this weak grasp they have on the game so far is going to get that much more perilous. Because if you have the mid lane outer turret, you can start pushing out, punishing V3 with lost waves to tower if, of course, Ace starts trying to step out of lane and tries to ult into side lanes. If you don't have that outer turret yourself, though, you are prey to getting heavily engaged onto by V3's comp.
Look, Ramone is still doing a fairly decent job of staying even-ish with Ace. That's good news. Jinx has got the most gold in the game right now, so Gango, again, also in a good spot.
Muujin just exists, the rest, by the way.
But, oh, no, and then I look over and see the Udyr after that last little play. Never mind. Okay, the point being, Jinx is doing relatively well.
I knew he was encrypted. I knew that Udyr didn't actually exist. We have our Nunu and Willem, not even in the game, but we have ourselves Bigfoot, because it doesn't actually exist. Muujin not actually in this game.
Okay. yes, okay. Whoops. Okay. Either way, yes, Muujin doing very well in this game. That is a very scary Udyr indeed, who has maxed out that Phoenix stance at this point, so there's a lot of damage coming through from him. And Gango would love to hold on to this tower best he could, but he's got to deal with a Herald charge that will surely put this tower down to
they get it low enough HP. They get it low enough HP. Okay, it's still like one auto off. That's not really something you can play around. Cog now aggressing onto Crash.
But that'll be the Ragnarok back up, and now Cog's actually in danger himself. Has got to think about this one. Here comes this one. The Flash Flay is a big deal. The Mega Death Rocket comes through as well. And that's 2 for Crash already. Here comes Ramon as well. The Chaos Storm running rampant. Massive fight for Sengoku, who have finally found the team fight they were looking for. Hollow gets 1, but it is a last gasp dead effort. Sengoku find 4 in trade.
And Gango brings with him the curse of Katie Rolster, who got excited in chat for V3. Gango's the one getting excited in the game. Did. Jinx absolutely popping off. Cog oversteps his safe bounds. He's not as tanky as, again, one of these full tanks like the Scion or the Cho'Gath. When this play kind of fizzles out in the mid lane, it allows Sengoku to once again have a look into this jungle, and there is no quick path to the fight from V3. They're just a little slow. NT takes the right decision to start flaying back into it, and yeah, Reiner is looking for the engage through, but he goes for the stun. The cleanse immediately comes out. This is where it's important for Jinx to have that summoner in the team fight. Your auto attack uptime is so important. Ace doesn't really get a lot done, doesn't get anything important onto Gango, and Gango is absolutely the player you need to watch, and he's the one person that's kind of untouched in this fight.
Ramone and Gango had both done fine at getting to their item breakpoints. Paz, NT, Crash are significantly lower economy. Look, Crash, even with all that, was still finding a fair amount of damage. He gets to pop Ragnarok and walk at people. That Udyr did less than 1,000 damage that fight. That is the guy with all the gold on there right now. Crash might now be in a difficult position. Does have the Lantern, though. It's got a Ragnarok as well, so it does get out of danger. But will not be able to secure that Scuttle Crab, which would have been a little bit better for this upcoming Infernal Dragon. Should Sengoku want to contest it. Again, they are still down about 2,000 gold. Ramone could also be in a spot of bother here himself. He's going to face check this Udyr, but crashes around. I don't think they're going to want to look for too much more. The gravity well as well, making things a little bit more challenging for the Udyr. But here comes the TF ult. But there is the Lantern. Muujin tries to get something more, but that was a nicely timed flay. And Sengoku Gaming roam as 4, trying to get themselves out. It'll have to be Crash that picks up the blue buff, though, to prevent anybody getting a steal.
No Ragnarok.
So it's the Olaf. There is no Ragnarok. Going to try and jump on this.
Excited!
Ramonade gets one back around. That's another one for Gango. It's 2 back for 1. I thought that was going to be an easy pick, and it really wasn't. Cog gets the Stormbringer, but you lose your mid laner. You use your support, or what was supposed to be an easy pick for V3 suddenly is not, as Sengoku just turned the damage on.
No such thing as an easy pick versus this team. They find themselves in position to turn things around, and the tanks are not tanky enough. Ace is not slippery enough, doesn't have himself as Zhonya's, has gone for the early fire cannon for that pick potential. Says, okay, Gango, no cleanse under that mid lane turret. Maybe we can look for a play. They burn that ultimate. Yes, they take that turret, but then Ace is not in a position with the vision available to really get on top of Gango. Now Muujin looking for something.
Yeah, those flame jumps aren't going to be in space, and Gango knows he's done for. Hollow gets to Killer Instinct, and that's a shutdown, and a 5th kill, by the way, for Hollow, who has been the recipient of a lot of these early plays. That's a big deal, and now with the Jinx dead, V3 might fancy themselves a Baron. That was a lot of the lead for Sengoku, or at least a lot of the fighting prowess. They're teleporting in as well.
That they are. I mean, Gango just doesn't drop the chompers across the entirety of the lane. Muujin just runs around them. Now Crash is going in.
He's got a Ragnarok. That's a lot of damage. Back and dead is the Rel. Paz now around as well. And V3 might now have overstepped. They tried to turn it around. Crash is in danger. That will be a massive Chaos Storm. Paz very low, though. Flash in from Cog. And suddenly V3 have found what they needed to. Ramone cannot stay alive long enough. Another shutdown. It's a double. And that's a big ult. That's the Mega Death Rocket going very much the wrong way. And a dead Enti gives Hollow another kill, and V3 will now certainly get themselves Baron. It looked good for a moment for Sengoku, but then the extended damage and that volley bear just getting to heal his way to danger.
There is a cleanse on Gango. I actually think he can maybe walk up and try and cleanse the gold card, look for something. Muujin, too threatening at this point, though. And that is going to be a series of picks into the Baron from V3. Again, we're probably going to see ourselves a replay of the initial pick onto Gango, and I think that the chomper placement didn't really help him out, because Muujin, of course, did just manage to run around them, even if there was inefficient pathing. He's still much more quick than the Jinx with just those items available. And what happened here? Look, what you really want to do is cut off the entirety of this pass. Doesn't manage to. I think he thought that Muujin was in range for the stun already. Doesn't, however, get himself out of dodge with that one. He goes down, and like you were saying, pretty much when the Jinx is down, the fighting efficacy of Sengoku is lowered to the absolute floor. Yes, Ramone, strong, kills off the Rel. Use your gravity, your Chaos Storm already, though, and your gravity field already. And then the ultimate comes out of this one, of course. Chaos Storm was used slightly later. But, I mean, Ramone, he's just not able to disengage in the same way that Jinx can. Doesn't have himself the Banshee's Veil at that point, doesn't have himself a cleanse, and they just chase them down.
Yeah, and Paz nearly had the mother of all flanks, but 2 clutch flashes from Ace and Hollow got them to cask the other way. It kept them alive. This Kai'Sa now at 7-1 and 4-3 items is also a massive threat in the game. And of course, if Sengoku can stall, they still have a great team fight comp. They really, really do.
I think
that
actually,
might have been the moment that breaks it way over.
Even team fight, I still favor the Jinx. I still think that Jinx is just a better champion in the front-to-back team fights. Kai'Sa is going to tell... sorry, no, that's not going to be the Kai'Sa. Because it's going to be Ace teleporting towards that top lane, looking for something on the to get the most out of this Baron buff. But, you know, if this does come down to another front-to-back team fight, I think that Sengoku is still definitely in it, even with this deficit.
Well, exactly. And Jinx, 2.5 items, Hollow 3 now. You know, there are some ways this works. You can see the CC chains if V3 can get them, but... You know, it was a close team fight, even a man down, and Crash around this back end might look for the engage. There he is coming over with the Undertow, looking for the zap as well, but doesn't necessarily find everything there, and the 1-3-1 will continue. It's Udyr playing the Trick 2G style down on that bot side right now.
I think that's very important, though, because you can't really pick off the Udyr. He's too fast, he's too strong, he has a Thornmail inventory, too. So you're unlikely to pick off the Udyr. The problem is, if you don't have Udyr with your group in the mid lane, there's a chance you get engaged onto. Oh, Chompers over the wall. This is dangerous now for Muujin.
He's going to spot a bother, but he's going to get engaged on. Crash going forward as well. There's a Death Center as well. They're trying to get as much damage down as they possibly can. The Mega Death Rocket isn't enough. Crash heals up a lot. Cog also taken very low. Paz would love this one. He's thinking about stepping forward, but Reiner is around. And that might actually ward off a lot of this Baron push. They get a tower in top lane, and that's actually it. It's a decent amount of gold. It's 3.5. Yeah, well, exactly. They get a fair amount. They do, but that's, I think, a lot of it off the kills, I think, earlier on, unless they picked up more towers than I'm aware of.
Well, I mean, of course, those kills came before the Baron was even taken, so that's not part of the Baron buff power play. So it is, of course, going to be towers in, I think it's, of course, mainly that top lane, and you get that bot lane out of turret 2. They've just ran through the jungle and taken all those camps, finding all of the micro advantages that they can find. Obviously, the big gold leads are on the front line for V3. You do have a lot of gold onto that Kai'Sa, but the thing for me is that Sengoku still have a relevant set of carries. This Victor, the Jinx, they can punish the first person in, and if you get that first kill, if you get excited, because this is Conqueror Jinx, you get the stacks of that to give you extra damage, then the attack speed from your passive will just push you over the edge. Watch for that first fill to come in. If it comes in early enough, I think that Sengoku still actually have a damage advantage.
Okay, we'll see how it plays, of course, because this Udyr, this Volibear are real tanky, but that will be the Infernal Drake taken by Sengoku Gaming. They're now going to try and disengage best they can, but that's a big turnaround. Muujin's in trouble, the cast disengages, and Muujin is left for dead, and the shutdown goes on to Jinx. That is a massive deal. Reiner taken so low. There's a Mega Death Rocket coming through. That's a big one onto Kokok. The engage from the Magnet Storm is massive, though. The turnaround. Reiner, that was massive. And suddenly the fight that was Sengoku's ain't anymore. V3 will turn it around and actually find themselves a victory here in Game 2 of a critical turnaround Magnet Storm.
Flashes on the carries. There was one on Gango, not quite for Ramune, but they just don't see it coming, and they get slapped across the face after they just took what seemed to be a winning team fight. Not a winning game anymore, though. 3-0 be damned. V3 are on the board.
It was a messy game. V3 come up to the early lead, but Sengoku tried to fight their way back into it. But what a beautiful engage after Reiner looked like he was out of the fight. V3 take it, and the series is tied up 1-1.
1-1. Both blue side teams winning so far. The early game from V3 really putting Sengoku into a difficult situation, but they were still at risk.
All right, well, to break this game down further, we're going to go on a bit of a break. It's going to be an interesting one to break down, I feel, so you're going to want to stick around. Analyst Desk in just a couple of minutes. Stick around for that.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the desk. Must one. Initialize Nightmare. Ladies and gentlemen, V3 Sports tie up this series 1-1 versus Sengoku Gaming, but it was a game of many different parts. This was not your mum and dad's typical one-side wins game like game number 1. This was definitely an advantage for one team, but another team not giving up. And in the early game, V3 Esports seemed to come out to an early advantage, I would say, initialized.
Yeah, they very much did. Mujin on this Udyr just got himself out to a very good early lead, kind of helping get that first blood onto Crash, and continuing on from there, being an absolute menace on this Udyr. He was the one who ended up with a majority of the early gold.
He really did, and he was running around this map like an absolute machine, was able to secure them a dragon, that Ocean Drake, as well as also just working around the team. However, while they were 4 kills up at one point, that wasn't really how this game went, and Sengoku really turned this around, and specifically Nightmare, Crash and Gango.
I'd really just say that Jinx in the current meta, if they get to free fire, doesn't actually matter if they're behind against their opposite number. They just tend to be the more useful carry. You get 1 kill, they get that huge amount of attack speed and movement speed, meaning that their auto attack uptime, particularly with their with the switcheroo getting maxed out for that range, just means you just don't get to avoid that Jinx. If Jinx survives the initial part of that fight, you even just trade 1 for 1, you just have to disengage. Sengoku played around this pretty well around the mid-game fights when they finally were allowed themselves a bit of a fight, and he'd still look dangerous into the mid-game.
Yeah, Jinx is definitely coming up in priority. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, we are playing on patch 11.5. So I think the only other champion that at least Initialize and myself would probably argue is in the top echelons, which hasn't been picked yet in this series, is Ezreal. So when are we going to see that one? When are we going to see that? Neither of these players have been much of a player of Ezreal yet, so... I
mean, Gango's historically been a very good Ezreal player.
He can play hyper carries, though.
The option, right? Wow, exactly. And, you know, the Jinx was looking, honestly, pretty good this game, right? Like, it was the right... It felt dangerous. It managed to stay very competitive in gold. Ramone as well also did a decent job of staying even-ish with Ace. They found that big fight when around that sort of Raptor bush when they were trying to snowball out from when V3 rather were trying to snowball out from there and get turned around on. And it was competitive and until sort of some of those sort of like extended CC fights from V3 made things at least close in the sort of late stages of the game.
Yeah, I mean, there was an extended ace for V3 Esports when Gango was found. Obviously, Mujin ran him down. I believe Hollow jumped over with the killer instinct and was like, hey, let's get this kill. And then it became an extended ace for V3 Esports and maybe a bit more for them, Nightmare.
So they took the Baron off that play too. This was at the point where it's like, Gango just overstays one time in mid lane and then suddenly you look at Sengoku's composition and you're like, oh, without the Jinx, they really don't do much, do they? When he respawned, he had ult. I know he was trying to pick up kills when NTU was running away from the grouped members. I actually think he needs to save that for the Baron because they're not exactly going to be regenning HP that quickly. There was a chance, particularly since he had Cleanse 2, he could get a big Jinx ult steal or several kills and then work around that. Didn't work out in that play. Still had another couple of good fights. But yeah, we could see basically this entire composition was, is Jinx there? If no, lose.
I think it's fair to come over to you, Initialize, for the final little moment, as this was a well and true play-by-play pop-off moment. Sengoku got the dragon. Seems great, right?
Yeah, I mean, it looked even better. They managed to get Mujin separated, blew him up as well. Rhino was chunked out to 10% HP. They think he's out the fight. They keep stepping forward, but they've all grouped up, and Rhino goes, well... time to flash crash down Magnet Storm on everybody into the attract repel. It's a 4-man knock-up, 4-man stun, 4-man stun again. Like, it's a complete disaster. And the remaining damage members and Hollow, who had picked up a lot of kills and a lot of gold in that game, get to finish up that fight. And Sengoku, yes, they'd been team fighting well, but you can't allow a rel and engage like that. Just Mega Death Rocket her, finish her off. Don't allow that opportunity, because Rhino sure as hell ain't gonna miss those.
I mean, Nightmare, what's your thought on this? Because obviously you're Reiner has been having kind of a hot and cold split so far.
I think that Rel makes most supports look very, very good. I think that Reiner in 2020 was the best support in the region. I mean, I truly believe that. We truly believe that. I think we'd all say that.
MVP almost.
Exactly, absolutely up there. Not this split. This split, Reiner struggled. He's been caught out a lot on stuff like Nautilus, on Thrash. He's been stepping it too far. He's been the first person to get picked. On Rel, this seems to be like that last vestige, that last bastion of Reiner's 2020 performance, where he does find these huge team fights time and time again. Didn't work out in the laning phase. I just think that...
Mr. Nymera, though.
Hello?
Rel wasn't in 2020 season.
No, but if you were going to draw a comparison between the way he played on Leona and a number of other picks, it really just seems like Rel is the only champion who's really managed to reach that same level on again. I think you can say same about a lot of different supports out there globally, though. Give them Rel, it makes them look very good and makes them very impactful on the game. I think at this point, Sengoku needs to be very careful about whether they want to give Reiner this Rel.
Well, we will have to see, gentlemen, in game number 3, if Reiner will get that Rel. Which side will these teams even play? And will Seraphine get banned or picked away in the correct order? We'll have to find out in the next episode of LJL OU, which is coming up right after this break.